see what we got there. So Facebook is removing all of my videos that have any kind of music in them. I didn't reverse the damn thing. So if you want to catch the old stuff where I already talked about this, you're probably not going to be able to find them. I'm going to move this table. There we go. Give my fatness a little bit of room there behind the table. So we got like 100 boxes together today. We got a whole bunch of paint cans drilled out today. I'll try to make this as viewable as possible. So these topics are probably going to blow your mind, and before I get rolling about it, I'd really like for everybody to just empty their head first thing. Since I've got the wave of people finally paying attention, I don't do it for fame or fortune or anything, right? Like, I'm just trying to say there is an entire world of things out there that your mind has been shaped to keep you from becoming aware of them, right? So that's like, there was a split in the road, right? In science, just for instance, right? They had alchemy and it was working. Alchemy. Right, so alchemy, right? Understanding the mixture of things, right? Like, not just chemistry, like let's mix this atom with that atom and see what happens, right? It's all the different things around it is what alchemy was. It was the temperature, it was the electrical energy around stuff. But the paint cans are a big topic, right? And that's where everybody's like, oh, this is the coolest thing, right? And it's a fad, is what it's, that's what it's going to be, is a fad. Everybody's going to be interested for now until they're not anymore, right? But it should be something that everybody's doing right now with this stuff with graphene, I'm telling you. So, I mean, I've covered all of it, right? I've said everything about it. But that technology, like, you have to look at, I see these idiots with all of these stupid comments about science. Looks like you haven't gone to science class since 7th grade and whatever, right? Well, all of that was Rockefeller-funded science, right? Every bit of it. Right down to the medicines that people have been addicted to since the 20s, through the Flexner Report. Look up the Abraham Flexner Report. You know what I'll do is I'll write these things down as I go, so you know what to Google, because this is going to be a hard one to track. You're going to have a hard time putting all this together on your own without actually seeing the things that I'm talking about, which you could all find in my pinned post, right? There are a couple longer videos. It might be 5 or 8 minutes long, but what I'm trying to tell you here is what the paint cans are. The paint cans are ancient Egyptian technology, right? That we're all shifted away from being able to understand. It's from a spiritual perspective, right? So I brought this book out here. I've ripped through it a few times, but not a full read, only because I know that. So Christopher Dunn, he's an engineer, and he ended up working for NASA at one time, right? Pays him all of his money, but these guys up on this level, they go through. There's the actual and the realistic, right? The reality versus the actuality. So the actual science, that's split right at around 1920. That's the split, right? Guys like Wilhelm Reich and Rudolf Steiner and Victor Schauberger, right? All of their technologies. Well, Steiner was more philosophical, right? But he didn't really go against anything, but he understood the old ways of actual science, right? The all-encompassing science, where it was philosophy, theosophy, and math, arithmetic, the 7 liberal arts, all those things bound into one, right? But looking at science from all these different perspectives. And since 1920 in the United States, we look at it from the teacher's perspective, and that's it. You got a class filled with 30 kids. That one teacher is bending the brains of that many kids all at one time, right? This is the way it is. You want the grade, do what I tell you, believe what I'm saying, right? And that's the science that we have, right? Well, where did that science come from? Rockefeller paid for it back in the 1920s, right? He's of the bloodline of the Rothschilds and all that stuff, right? So these guys from Germany, so Schauberger actually worked for Adolf Hitler, and he came to the United States, the Operation Paperclip thing. All these guys came through that era, right? Right when they changed the CIA, from the Office of Strategic Services. That's when the Nazis didn't come here to work for our government. They came here as the control portion of our government, right? The guys that are here to control the government, right? So Wilhelm Reich, climate engineering starts, right? After all of his technology. Guess what? He goes to jail, dies within a year of a heart attack is what they claim, dead. Victor Schauberger sells off all of his patents to the United States government. Guess what? He dies within a year or something, right? Or maybe 2, whatever amount of time it was, right? But Schauberger was responsible for all the technology behind the flying saucers, right? The little green men and all that stuff. It was just aluminum, right? It was aluminum gyroscopic devices that would levitate. And he was responsible for the jet engine. The jet engine. We wouldn't have the jet engine. That was the one thing that Germany had over the United States back then. How did they not win the war with faster jet planes and all that stuff, right? Because the Nazis did win the war, right? We were the Nazis. That's the hardest part to get, right? And that's a bend in the history you were taught, right? That's the Rockefeller schooling that you got, right? So look into Rockefeller and how he took over or basically created the schooling system, right? Any higher education was all commandeered. He took it all back then. He went into the colleges. He said, you guys are doing electrotherapies, you're shocking people and doing all these different experiments with frequency and vibration, and you're healing people. We can't have that. There's no market in that, right? Start selling them these poison drugs that keep getting them sicker and keep telling them that the drugs are making them healthier. They just need to try new drugs, right? That's the point. That's the way that they work. We're watching that, right? Put the deodorant on with the aluminum in it. Use the toothpaste with the fluoride. Your teeth will be whiter, right? Everything they say is backwards. The more you go to the hospital, the sicker you stay. It's just the way that it is. You can watch it over and over endlessly and go, oh my God, how didn't we get it all this time, right? They'll tell you that, aspartame and chemicals and the lawn killing, weed killing chemicals and everything else everywhere is killing people from cancer and giving everything cancer. Everything, right? Except for electricity. The radiation from the electrical components in the world, right? The electricity in your wall has a radiation value to it. In your house, your microwave oven, guess what? That's diabetes. The more you stand around your microwave, the more pancreatic failure you're going to end up running into. Since the 80s, that's the way it's been since the microwave oven came out for residential use, right? So read The Invisible Rainbow. I'll say it a billion times. Read The Invisible Rainbow. You'll see, and by the end of the book, you'll get for yourself wow. So what I wanted to talk about is the spiritual technology of Egypt, right? So Christopher Dunn was a NASA engineer, and he goes through ancient Egypt, and he breaks down all of these different concepts. And ever since 1913, when the Hebrew map or concept of the earth has been changed through Rockefeller history in the history classes. I think I have a train coming. This always happens. That train is so damn loud. Yeah, it is the train. I can hear it. So I don't know where I was at. Oh, they changed the form of. All right, so I want you to look up the Hebrew map of the world. Okay, that'll be one topic that you should go and look into yourself. Another one right after that will be the ancient Egyptian goddess Nut. Ancient Egyptian goddess Nut. Okay? She is what the Hebrew map of the world shows as the dome. Okay? Now, the science behind the way the pyramids, right? You can look at all that science in that pinned post at the top of my page. You can go and look at that yourself, right? And there's a big argument about the earth being flat or the earth being round. I don't know what you consider round or flat. I don't care. I know what I've learned, right? And it's through reading books like this, right? From people that have actually been there, people that have broken down all the mathematical concepts in its construction, the potential possibilities of what they were built for, and blah, 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 blah. But the one thing that all of the ancient temples were responsible for, absolutely, and all had in common, was that they were all about resonant energy. Whether that was acoustic, or electrical, or piezoelectrical, or photons, or sound, vibration, whatever, right? The one thing they all had in common was they were all about vibration in any of those different forms, right? So the ancient Hebrew version of the earth looks like this. And there is heaven of heavens, and the waters above. The waters above, right? So that's all ocean is what they basically said, okay? Now the ancient Egyptian goddess Nut is this. She's stretched out above, and she's got stars inside of her body, right? You can look that video up. They're not a video. Look up an image. So Google ancient Egyptian goddess Nut and look at the images. So the concept behind the pyramid is that it is piezoelectrical energy. The same thing why you're putting quartz crystal at the bottom of a paint can. So if you went and built a paint can on your own, you saw that they work for yourself. I have my phone reversed, so I can't read any comments. I don't know if there's anybody there. Holy hell, there's a lot of people there, I think. So behind that, the paint can now, the quartz crystal, under tension or stress, will generate more wave propagation, right? It's why we have radio technology. There would be no radio technology without crystal, without quartz crystal. Clear quartz crystal, all right? But what I'm trying to tell you here is they had a king's chamber at the center, right? The king had a gold death mask, right? King, or the pharaoh, the god on this earth, they would take the god and put him into the heavens, right? So if you've ever seen the Pink Floyd album cover, Dark Side, is it Dark Side of the Moon? I forget which one, but they show the refracted light. They show the refracted light through a prism, whatever that. I think it's that one. What I'm trying to tell you here is that all of these stone blocks in the ancient Egyptian pyramids, they were all granite. They all have, granite has what's called quartzite in it, right? So the more weight you keep stacking blocks onto, the more mechanical stress you have on all of that quartzite, right? That generates a piezoelectrical energy. Underneath the earth, there was a scientist named Winifred Otto Schumann, and they named that resonant field of the Earth's crust that propagates this wavelength at 7.83 hertz is called Schumann resonance now because of him, right? They call that wave propagation Schumann resonance. So you have a vibration, you've got stones, and you've got crystal. Inside of the pyramids, they have a chamber that's shaped like this. On one side, the wall is like this. On the other side, the wall is like this, right? And so if you think you're standing in a canyon, and you yell from one side of that canyon to the other, and you get an echo banging back at you because it went down low, it reverberated a couple of times, but it took so long for the sound to travel that distance, and it's an unnatural echo, right? Because it's not a controlled echo, right? So sound traveling from 1 to 100 feet would take whatever amount of time. Let's just say it's like 1 second. You know, and you can do the whole thunder, you know, measure the thunder, how far away the lightning is by counting the seconds between the thunder to you or whatever, that kind of stuff. So under the golden ratio, which the entire pyramid is built around, that's nature's harmony, right? So when I have a cloudbuster put together, or a paint can put together, and it's 7 5/8, 12-inch pipe, 19 7/8 on the next pipe, right? That's because that's the math in that paint can. That is the math behind this, which is 1.618. That's the ratio, 1.618 to 1. So again, like in my hand, right, that bone is the 3 bones in my finger. One is 1 inch, the next would be 1.618 larger, 1.618 larger, 1.618 larger, 1.618 larger is my whole hand to my elbow, right? And that's how God's thumbprint works. That is that spiral right there. You can see it in the side of my hand, right? So when you're creating resonant fields and resonant energies, you want that to go in a naturally harmonious format. You need to have that involved in a paint can. That's why I said this, the sizes are specific, right? So 7.83 hertz is reverberating under the pyramids at all times. You take a golden death mask, gold transmits or conducts electrons. Those electrons gathered up at the center is the consciousness of the pharaoh. So when you die, in the last 7 minutes of your life, all of your neurons rush to the brain. They would they would put them under some kind of anesthesia. I forget the name of the plant, never remember it. They put them under anesthesia. They carve out all of the internal organs of the body, and they leave, I think they leave the head alone. I don't remember how I read that, but I think they leave the head alone, taking the God and putting him into the heavens, right? So think of these things, right? In old German, wer alt, right? That's the top of that post that I'm telling you on my pin post. Wer alt is this age of man. This age of man is what the Germans said, wer alt. That was adopted by the United States through whatever, the 20s and 30s or something like that. So the concept, the word itself, world, began in the United States sometime after the 1900s, maybe a little bit earlier, right? This age of man. And you think about the similarities between this age of man and all of this stuff going on around us, right? In this, whatever we call the Verald, right? So that's the world. The planetes, the planets in Greece, that was planetes, that was the wandering stars. The wandering stars, right? They all have 5 points in the goddess Nut. In that depiction of the goddess Nut, those stars inside of her body, you'll notice red dots, and there are 7, the 7 natural planets, right? But those also represent the chakras of the body. And so the PhD guys will tell you, yeah, that's just chakras and I don't get this and whatever, right? But the truth behind it is they were saying that the little men, there's little men all throughout the bottom of that depiction, and they're the pharaohs, the pre-dynastic pharaohs. There's a bunch of animals that were buried with all those pharaohs, horses, dogs, or whatever. I don't know what they were, but it shows all of these in these depictions in this tiered system. You know, it looks like a sideways ladder, and you'll see all the little men standing next to each other. Those are the men on earth whose spirits have become the stars. Okay? Now the next thing after that, the waters above, Schumann resonance, that resonant field paired with the sound and the chants of ancient Egyptian prayer, right? The chants that they used through their prayer, those chants would resonate a specific frequency, right? And you think about it, you go into a church, you sing these religious songs, there's a bell, a harmonious thing, you've got a copper roof on top of your church steeple, you've got grounding rods all over it, right? You feel good when you go into the building. That's a resonant chamber. Every single church you'll ever go into will be the tallest building in that city or town, right? The steeple will be the tallest thing. It will always be made of copper, right? What are the cloudbusters? There's a copper there, right? All of the ancient, or not the ancient, but the studies of Christopher Dunn, right? In that book, all of the studies have to do with resonance, with geometry, with statistic, specific architecture, right? And that architecture literally is all built around the Pythagorean rectangle, right? So a Pythagorean rectangle is how that spiral would fit in. So it's like you have there's little blocks, right? It just builds itself out of squares, right? So the Pythagorean rectangle is what is nature, right? It might be in a square, right? You'd have 90-degree corners and all that stuff, but you fit that spiral in here, something like this, in the rule of thirds, right? And you just keep on reducing the area, the overall area, to come up with these 4 points, right? And that's what they call. And now it's not only in the area downward, it's also in the height from floor to ceiling, right? They use that specifically. That shape will fit perfectly inside one of these Pythagorean rooms, right? So now what I'm trying to say about the heaven of heavens, the waters above, the ancient Egyptian temples being the space ship for the gods that has the 2 resonant chambers for the sun and the moon to charge the crystal inside the quartzite at the depths of the pyramid, right? So now if you go and you look up, again, that page or that post that I have on the top of my feed, it's a pinned post, and I talk about it. It opens with Werald, W-E-R-A-L-D. If you look at that post, you'll see, I'm just going to say the waters, heaven of heavens, the waters above. Oh, so there will be an image in that post where there are these white flares over a map of ancient Egyptian monuments. Okay? The ancient Egyptian monuments exactly align with not just the belt of Orion's constellation, but the entire constellation. The entire thing. And you'll see those white spots on that map of the ancient Egyptian temples align perfectly. But you have to reverse the image and drop the sky basically down onto Egypt, right? Because that's the resonant field of energy that they sent that god's consciousness into the heavens. So all of the gods that got a pyramid, they were gods on earth, like Julius Augustus Caesar. Now the really, really, really interesting thing is, I thought to myself, anybody that's been watching me for a while or talking with me for a while, they all know that I'm talking about this stuff. So I got curious and I looked up this story, which I already heard a long time ago. There's a 15-year-old Canadian boy that found this ancient Mayan temple because he used the stars as a map. He was a Canadian kid. Just look up the story. Look that story up. 15-year-old Canadian finds Mayan temple, right? Just look that up on YouTube. Okay? 15-year-old Canadian finds Mayan temple. So I thought after I saw that always stayed in my brain for probably 15 years. It's an old story. It's however long ago I heard it, I was like, wow, that's pretty wild. So the kid located a lost temple because he used the stars from above. Now, the thing that was missing, that everybody is also missing about Egypt, is it shows the entire Orion constellation, right? Like Alexandria is right here. I forget the name of this place. And then you had Giza with the 3 pyramids. And then you have these other obelisks down here, which are the arms. And then there was 2 parts of the constellation right here. And down in the southwest of of Egypt, that didn't have any temples on that map that I looked up, right? So there's another guy, I think his name's Robert Edward Grant. He's a neurosurgeon, but he's one of the controlled op guys that's never going to divulge any of the actual things that are in ancient Egypt, right? The only ones that are allowed to speak about whatever is in Egypt are the ones that are already controlled, right? Like Dr. Robert Schoch, if you look that guy up, he's the one that said that the ancient Egypt is probably 15 to 20,000 years older than we've been told, right? And he did that by looking at the geological stuff around the Sphinx, the water runoff, and the Sphinx was there through the Great Floods, which was called the Younger Dryas period, right? So that entire constellation, you would never be able to tell that it aligns with everything in all of Egypt. It is, every star has a temple that matches it on earth, right? On earth as it is in heaven, we hear through the Bibles, right? As above, so below, those kinds of things, right? Dr. Robert Edward Grant goes to Egypt and comes up and says one of these things on his podcast. Guess what? They're thinking that there's 2 more, and I was thinking this. I know there's 2 pyramids there, right? And I was thinking this. It's probably 6 months old, 8 months old, whatever that post was. This guy said this maybe 2 months ago. He said, we're missing two temples down in ancient Egypt. We found 2 new temples down in ancient Egypt. And guess where they're located? Right where those 2 from the constellation show in the star maps, right? So that's just like, wow, I knew that already. And that's pretty interesting, but through reading these kinds of things, right? So then I got really ballsy and I said, all right, well, I'm going to go look at the Scorpius constellation. And guess what? The Scorpius constellation aligns absolutely perfectly with Machu Picchu. Absolutely perfectly. Every star has a building or a temple in place that totally aligns with the Scorpius constellation. But it only aligns if I were to drop the sky down directly on top of it, like a mirror image, basically, right? And then I did it with Angkor Wat in Indonesia. And guess what? It lined up again. I don't know if you'll find those posts down my page because I post a lot, so I apologize for that. But as I'm discovering this, I'm posting, I'm going, holy shit, like I really get all of this now, right? So my whole point here is, I don't know what the shape of the earth is. I do know that since I said we live inside of an ocean and that the plane of the earth is flat, right? Since I've said that, I really went into like this dark mode with Facebook. They glitched out all my shit. They dropped everybody out of the live video I started talking about it with the first time. And you know, it was a weird thing. The only other time that I got hit that hard was probably through the whole COVID thing, right? When they were not allowing anybody to speak freely about anything. You know, I really got hammered through that one too. So that's all of the things that I really wanted to talk about, right? That is the shape that these. So the other thing that this is going to be the last nail in the coffin for you to understand is called sonoluminescence. So through sonoluminescence, they created the stars above. They trapped and captured and sent. And you think about all these old temples, like in the Mayans, right? They were blood sacrifices. They were murdering people. Blood and death is always involved somehow in whatever is going on here. So it has something to do with plasma, something to do with blood, something to do with rituals and whatever else. So sonoluminescence, or if you want to look more simply, look for the star in the jar. There's a scientist in the 80s or 90s. He goes, and that's what they called it. He had a flask or a beaker or something or a whatever filled with water, and they generated an air bubble inside of that water, and they shot a sound wave into it. And the sound wave had nowhere to go once it got trapped inside of the bubble. And so inside that wave, it just eventually grows stronger and stronger and stronger until eventually they said, oh, well, it's like 10,000 degrees worth of energy are trapped inside of that little bubble, right? So in that video, you understand sonoluminescence would be the pyramid generating piezoelectrical energy. That transfers into photonic energy, and later on photonic energy, or plasmonic. So photonic and then plasmonic. So the plasma that you're looking at, the twinkle twinkle little star up in the sky, that plasma that's in the science of plasmonics. So by creating a vibration down here, you compound things, right? It's like to the ancient Egyptians, everything was about octaves, right? You go 12 notes in music, 7 whole notes, right? 5 minor notes or whatever, but the 7 prime notes, right? 7 colors of the rainbow, right? What they always tried to tell us was that everything is in octaves, and the Romans tried to duplicate that with their number system, you know. So the Egyptians just counted in ones and hash marks, right? They'd count up to the number 9, and their first hieroglyph would be an upside down horse hoof or a cow's hoof, I think, right? They would get to 10. No, that was 10, right? That's at 10. And then 100 is, they say that it's a coil of rope. It looks something like that. So basically, if you had, you know, that and then the horse hoof and then 3 ones, that would be 110. You know, 100 plus 10 plus 3, 113. And then you had the Romans saying that we had, you know, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, which is half of the X, right? Vortex energy. Think about vortex energy. So it would be the V, 7, 8, 9, and then the double V, the vortex energy. Go into the whole number 9 thing. 9 as the pyramid. I don't know if you ever saw that video I did. That was a good video I did it a long time ago. I explained all the sacred geometry, number 9 stuff. But once you get to 10, then you're on into the next octave. So they're basically trying to say that you get into the next octave and you keep on compounding energy, right? All frequency, all sound, all light, everything. So let's just say this is vibration, and then this is sound, and then this is light, right? And then that light starts to move so quickly that eventually that light becomes mass, because there's all of that energy. You wouldn't know where the pinky begins and the thumb ends. it would all be moving so fast that this is where we get the energy to split an atom to make a bomb. All of that energy trapped in one particulate, right? If you believe in atoms that way, one physical thing. So that's what they were saying. With a low chant, with a low resonant field of energy, you can compound in this upside down funnel the energy necessary to propagate an outward wavelength of energy that would pierce the heavens. So what caused the great floods, right? What caused the great flood? You know, Noah and his sons are the beginning of civilization, right? For the people in the Abrahamic religions. What pierced the heavens? Well, Atlantis, right, in the Atlantic Ocean. Why would they name it the Atlantic Ocean, right? It's just off the coast of Spain or something is what they believe, right? So Atlantis, here's what I think. I think that they created a great big giant pyramid or something like this, pierced it, and it rained for 40 days and 40 nights, right? The waters above rained for 40 days and 40 nights. Now, previous to this event, I think that it was much larger. Okay? 300 meters larger, 300 meters deeper. Geology says that before that great flood, the Earth's surface was 300 meters deeper. So what would giants need to live? More oxygen. As this water comes up and fills up the empty cup, this water comes up and fills up that empty cup, what happens to the oxygen? That's displacement. Where does all the oxygen go? I have no freaking idea, but if you think about that as a theory, now that is theoretical. The other things that I'm mentioning here are a chain of events that happened historically that were never taught to go look at, you know? And in those events, you can start to develop your own vision of, all right, well, what is it that we actually live in, right? And we could start talking about stars, and there's NASA goes to space every day, right? They're taking your money to do that, right? You're okay with them taking your money for space exploration, right? But guess who is responsible for all the shit being sprayed in the sky? NASA's a big part of that. I saw the sky opening up all over the place around me, right? Guess who was up there? NASA. If you would like, I will message you or comment with a picture of NASA checking out why is there a hole in the clouds right now, right? They were over my house, as was the Air Force, as was the NOAA, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Agency or whatever, administration. So, I mean, you could really go in and start reading these things to the point of like, holy shit, I might be crazy, right? Because I did this whole thing with, I don't want to be a flat earther, right? I just wanted to look at it and enjoy the topic as like a possibility. But through my education, my Rockefeller education, I never got far enough for all that stuff to actually penetrate and stick with me, you know? So reading on my own and my own personal observations, experiences, you know, that is what your little paint can is doing. If you decide to make one of the paint cans, it's an energy thing. You're propagating a jet engine of piezoelectrical energy and photons, not photons, but you know, so it's an electron cannon. That's basically what it is, and you're exchanging it for a disharmonious static charge above, right? The Earth is not healthy while that shit is in the sky. So there was something in this book that I ripped through before, and I wanted to read it because there's so many cool things in here. But the guy worked for NASA. You know, NASA is to lie, right? Nature of knowledge, matter, mystery, quantum reality. So quantum, everything is countable. It's not, because everything is literally one. Right, if you want to look into the flower of life, this other guy that was making the Cloudbusters, he went kind of nuts and started, he was showing people how to make the flower of life on the paint can lid, right, which is kind of unnecessary, but it's neat, and when you know it, it's neat to know how to be able to do that, right? So there's one central circle, and there are 6 conjoining circles off that central circle, right? And what everybody is missing in that flower of life is this shape all throughout the entire thing, right? You're looking at totally different things like the Vesica Pisces, right? You're looking at the 6 points inside of the circle. Those 6 points would be like the Star of David or whatever, right? Those 6 points would be your intersecting points for all of the outer circles. There's no way I can draw this freehand, but the 6 outer circles, there's no way I can do it. But that is the one thing inherent in all things, right? Again, you have this. If I were looking from up here down at that, right, I would see a spiral. So that spiral is God's thumbprint. That is the 1.618 in all things. That spiral is critical in understanding how all things work. So one atom into the next. If you get the book, The Universal One by, I can't remember his name now. He was a real big topic when the actor came out and started saying, is one really two? You know, if you start counting, what the hell is that guy's name? Whatever his name is. But Walter Russell. So Walter Russell, he shows in The Universal One how everything is one, right? Like you go from oxygen to hydrogen. Just it's not about the displacement of atoms and all this different stuff. So the reason I'm saying that is because quantum is a countable everything, right? That's what they're doing in the physical world right now with AI. They're counting using quantum physics, right? Being able to count everything, right? It's impossible. You would never be able to count all things unless it all has graphene in it, right? And that's the merger of the man and the technology, right? Blending the man with the technology would be in the 5G grid, right? God, right? The God is the man on earth that gets put into the heavens. So everybody on earth was a god on this earth until they have escaped and gone to the heavens, right? I don't know where the hell I was going with that or why I said it. The gods in the heavens, whatever. But yeah, everything is one. Consciousness, mystery of the observer, mystery of life, the origin mystery, changing paradigm science, and the origin of religion. That would probably be interesting. So I'll read you a couple pages of that. Okay, 132. Like you can see all these things that are in here. I'll just have to remember 132, right? Sun, the three principles, water, the four elements, stone, one fruit, moon, sun, two seeds, right? So this guy goes through all of these different depictions of what they were doing in their architecture and geometry and whatever. That's a big one in almost all of their architecture. But so he probably says something about, I just like the pictures, man. Right? Because that's what I'm going to end up having to say. All right. Direction of rotation, tangential projection, movement of celestial body. What's at the center of it? Right? Precessional motion, precessional motion, pole of the axis. Right? It's always that spiral involved. So when you're looking at satellite imagery of the Earth, you're always seeing clouds in a perfect spiral, right? And they're always running counterclockwise because of the other models that I could get into, but it would take too long to explain all of that. My ideas of it and the way that I see it. Vitruvian Man, again, that's 1.618. So it was Leonardo da Vinci drew Vitruvian Man to show that that spiral is inherent in all things. You know, like my arm, if I put my arm up like this and I swung it out this way, right, all of that motion. It's like the little Tai Chi guys do that stuff, right? They move and, right? It's all that, right? It's the spiral of life, the natural motion to all things, anything that is natural, that is alive. This is a great book, other than this guy doesn't understand the concept of the planetes thing, you know. So I'll read from 132, a short thing, and then I'll answer any questions or see what the comments are. I'm curious to see. The reflective principle. The roots of ancient wisdom. 130. Changing paradigms, science and the origin of religion. Without some future scientific breakthrough. Charles Darwin said, in scientific investigations, it is permitted to invent any hypothesis, and if it explains various large and independent classes of facts, it rises to the rank of well-grounded theory. So next it says, without some future scientific breakthrough, the questions of how and why life exists are clearly beyond the limits of science. Furthermore, given the unknowable disposition of events surrounding the universe's origins, universe, and you have to take these other words the way they're put together, universe, one story, universe, one story, one song, one, right? That's what universe would mean otherwise, like ver all. Universe's origins. There will likely never be a cosmogony established as fact. Nonetheless, inferences can be made from what scientific knowledge there is, and such inferences move science into the realm of the sacred, right? Sacred geometry. As a result, given the anthropic principle, an understanding of the origin and nature of the cosmos is possible. Such an understanding is the man-cosmos, meaning that the man is the cosmos. Although such a cosmogony is clearly a matter of interpretation, its conceptual foundation connects rationally with today's scientific evidence, particularly physics, as much as the irrational can be rationally explained. At this stage of reading, you might wonder why the concept of God has not been addressed. The reason is that God is a conceptual matter as opposed to being a scientific matter, and involves a faith-based system of belief. As a consequence, potentially every person may have a different idea of what or who God is, if he or she in fact believes that God exists. Although God may indeed exist in some manner unknown to us, there is no scientific evidence for the omnipotent, or omnipotent, omniscient, omnipresent entity. Science puts forth a very different view of God in the characteristics of the cosmos and the principles of nature. Not quite 200 years ago, however, Western civilization had a very different interpretation of man and the universe. From the 4th century through the middle of the 19th century, a biblically based Christian worldview was the social norm. Before the Enlightenment, which began during the latter part of the 17th century, there was little, if any, philosophical opposition to such a worldview. In some regimes, any opposition was thwarted by imprisonment, torture, and even death. The world was flat and believed to be a little over 5,500 years old, as calculated by Archbishop of Armagh, James Ussher, in 1581 to 1656. Disease was believed to be the result of evil spirits, and magic was considered witchcraft, but all that was about to change. During the Enlightenment, a string of scientific discoveries and inventions from Francis Bacon, the guy who rewrote the Bibles. Francis Bacon rewrote the Bible, the King James Bible, for the king to have more control over his God-following people, right? You know, follow the laws of your master or whatever, right? The inductive and experimental scientific method, Galileo Galilei, the mathematics of mechanics, especially dynamics, Johannes Kepler, the laws of planetary motion, Nicholas Copernicus, the sun-centered solar system, the Roger Bacon, the use of the experimental methods in alchemy that led to chemistry, laid the foundation for the birth of science. With an understanding of his predecessor's work, the mathematician Sir Isaac Newton developed this differential and integral calculus, providing the methodology to study phenomena such as gravity and motion, concepts brought forth by Newton in his widely popular book, Philosophiae Naturalis Principia Mathematica, blah, blah, blah. But anyway, that is the opposition, right? If you don't believe in Jesus, you're going to get hung up on a cross and whatever, you know. But that was the where science, you're talking about sciences and religions and philosophies and all these different things throughout the ages that have constantly changed. Well, we keep on adding on to all of these different things, and we never reduce them down to, by the least common denominator, right? Where did it all come from? The pyramid, ancient Egypt. That's where all of these sciences, all of these religions, right? They're all built on ancient Egypt. And again, read the book, The Secret History of Our World by Mark Booth. Read that book and you will see for yourself the evolution of science and the materialistic world and the way that we view things and the way that we live, right? All of that stuff will come to be in your mind as, wow, this is how we got here, right? Secret societies, right? All of it's real. It's all real stuff. So, I'm done. I thought you might find any of it. I was hoping I lost a lot of people there, so I'm guessing we're not very popular talking about the flat earth. The flat earth or the round earth or whatever you want to call it. So, hi, Brenda. Religious dogma versus esotericism. Yeah, for sure. You can only see it one way, right? Like, Brenda's seen me talk about that for a really long time. A long time ago. But, is a protectionist stabilizer. Yes, Google it. I don't know what you're talking about. Robert Martin, Lola Vicky Reed is watching. Shane went from making Cloudbusters to Egypt, Atlantis to Thor, Thoth to Tai Chi, besides all I missed before joining here. I don't know what to say to that. Strawberry jam. Little Tai Chi guys, right? Mass is Hebrew, means to lift or carry, maybe. Robert Gilbert founded Vesica Institute. Can't see your pictures? Oh, you can't see them. Must have been crummy drawing. Robert Martin. It's actually Nasha. It's something Nasha. It means to hide or to conceal or something like that. I know I've read it. Like I've looked up the interpretation. Maybe Google was wrong. I don't know. Terrence Howard was the guy that I was talking about. Tom Hughes. Yes, thanks. I've been decoding the flower of life innocently since I was 3 years old. Now we know. Yeah, it's all about DNA. It's the one thing inherent in all things is that spiral, that DNA strand, right? So, spirit, like esoterically speaking, I'm not. Oneness. Universal One by Walter Russell. Yeah, there we go. DNA. Why is the Chinese government still hiding the 43 pyramids over there? I know. China is that's a big thing. It's a sad thing that Hebrew, NASA means to deceive, not Alan, not Greer. That's what I've read. I mean, I don't, possibly, who knows? But, and then you go look into the whole thing with Werner von Braun, the Nazi, the Ashkenazi. He was an actual Nazi. And then you look up like Klaus Schwab, right, who is a Frankish Jew, but his father was a Nazi officer, right? I'm telling you, the Nazis were the Ashkenazis. That's the way it was, right? They had on their airplane fuselages, one side was the seal of, or the Star of David, the other side was the swastika. The coins had the same thing, right? They ran shit, They got the people of Germany to stick their heads up and say, yeah, we'll go fight a war because, look, you're bringing out, and they're doing the same thing with the United States now, right? You love your country, right? You want to be a patriot, right? And everybody's going online, registering to join all these groups for Second Amendment. And, yeah, I love Trump, and I think that we should all be patriots, right? You're all sticking your heads up for whatever the hell they're planning on doing next, right? And that's like the 100-year... that's their cycle of things, right? It's like every 100 years some major war or whatever, right? Like, it's been a long time. So, and here comes AI, another lesson to be learned. Yeah, AI, that's so as they, when you talk about etheric energy and the ether and all that stuff, that was the one compound That was the one thing that is in all things. That is that spiral of life, right? That is in electricity. It's in the air. It's in the water. The way everything moves in nature. But that is the fifth element in the mind, right? It's the duality of the so it's a mirror image. It's the feminine and masculine in the mind, right? What one side does, the other side mirrors exactly in the opposite, so I was reading something about that. It was so fascinating. But AI and 5G is the, so it's the merger of biology. It's the merger of intellect, of emotion, of vibration, right? If they're spraying that shit in and on everything, and we're injecting it through all these different pharmaceutical plans, and it's in our tooth fillings, and it's in our hemorrhoid cream, right? Whatever, right? They're putting the shit in literally everything now, the sodas and whatever else, one way or the other. And like, I was drinking mushroom coffee, and the guy that made the mushroom coffee, the CEO, went to Harvard University. And I think that they're putting graphene in it. I drank, I think I bought like 5 bags of it. And I thought, this guy went to Harvard. Everybody that goes to Harvard, right? Mark Zuckerberg, for instance, right? Harvard is like CIA Central, and Yale, and like Georgetown is another one. But most likely, if they went to those colleges, guess, they're trained in, the secret services, some way or another. But the Atlanteans' downfall is due to their abuse of technology. Yeah, I mean, I really got into the Atlantis thing for a little while. The Atlantis and Lemuria, that book by Rudolf Steiner, it explains the 5 prime races and the 7 subcultures of those races and stuff. The Hyperboreans at one time that they think have migrated off to the north, like basically what we would call the North Pole, but the land that we can't get to, nobody's allowed to go to, right? Nobody knows where it is. Like, who physically went to exactly where the North Pole is? Why does it always move, is what they're always saying. Why can't you go to us, to Antarctica, right? All of it, right? All that stuff. When you start looking into the whole flat Earth idea, you're like, wow, that's a pretty strange bunch of things happening, right? The airplane patterns, flying over land. Oh, well, it's just so they can fly over land in case they wreck or they start running out of fuel, they can land somewhere or whatever bullshit, right? But you never see them crossing over Antarctica, right? You never see flight paths going over Antarctica. You never see them going over, like from the base, like down by Argentina, oh my God, what is the name of the place down there? At the bottom of South America. I can never think of this place. Not Chile, but whatever. You can never see that going straight from there, straight to Australia. They always go from the bottom of South America up to North America, or up to Europe, and then down there, right? But then you lay out that Gleason's map, and you're like, wow, that's a straight line. Over and over and over and over again. All of the flight patterns do the same thing. Any long haul flights like that. And that's wild. Like, that's a wild thing. So, have to do research on the sonoluminescence. Look that one up, man. It's really cool, Nas. This is how Shane has a good time. It really is. I enjoy it. Yeah, he's done so many lives trying to teach people. Thanks, Astria. Yeah. Dude is full of information. Most people can't retain half of this. We are getting dumbed down every generation, for sure, Kyle. And that's the fluoride. That's the anything that confuses you, right? It's all about confusion and misleading you into just all right. So ancient Egyptian, the laws of Ma'at, right? The principles of Ma'at were not to eat meat to stay spiritual, for something not to die for my benefit, to stay spiritual, to stay pure, to not cause harm on anything. And they didn't really eat meat, right, until the Levant, right, until the Hyksos overthrew the governmental structure of ancient Egypt, right? And then they were later thrown out as the Israelites, poor us, we were slaves in Egypt, which was the lie. They made slaves of the people of Egypt. You know, it was Kemet, right? That's the real name of Egypt, is Kemet, right? Everybody should call it that, because the Greeks, who were also a derivative of what the Hyksos were, right? The Hyksos are the leaders from afar, or the leaders of the foreign leaders, or whatever it is, right? They have this power conduit that they travel in, right? And that's money. They created money specifically as a vampire system to get people to work for money, right? It was simpler back in ancient Egypt. They just traded by weight, and that was it. Ancient Mesopotamia traded by weight. And then the Akkadians rise up, overthrow Sumer, and now you have this financial system and coinage, like made of bronze, stamped bronze, whatever. And they say, oh, well, we were so smart for that, right? Well, if you build the money system, you control the money system, right? You're the one that's able to count. You're able to control, how people perceive time, right? Like by counting on your fingers is what they did, right? The 3 bones in each finger is 12. That's your day and night. 12 hours in the day, 12 hours in the night. 5 times that, 12. That's 60 seconds and all that, right? So as these merchants and whatever they were trying to push their infrastructure systems onto the next unknowing population, right? They land in Egypt. Hey, you want to be like those guys over there with all the coins, right? Look at how wealthy they are, and they all have gold, right? We fall for this every day with this bullshit money that we use, right? Digital currency is going to be the next one, right? The 1920s with Bill Gates, that's another one, right? Bill Gates' grandfather was Frederick T. Gates, who worked for Rockefeller and was the representative at the meeting at Jekyll Island. If you look up that book, Jekyll Island, the meeting at Jekyll Island, it's an island down in Georgia where all the wealthy bankers got together after the Titanic thing happened, and all the wealthiest men who, in gold-backed currency were on the Titanic and died just, oops, right? They were all invited by J.P. Morgan, and they all end up drowning or whatever. Suddenly there's this meeting on a Federal Reserve, federal in name only. It never had anything to do with the federal government at all. They controlled all the money, and that was it. So it was fiat, nothing backed it but debt money. That was what they created back, I think it was 1921. Then you have the Great Depression, you have like the reverberations of that transition from one finance into another system, right? You have the Great Depression as people with, gold-backed money are all starting to show up broke. Well, what happened to all the gold, right? The Hyksos took all of the actual gold, right? I call them the Hyksos throughout all these different ages, right? That's what that conduit is. The people who have always been the wealthiest because they've always controlled the motion, the nature of money. They've always controlled the nature of money. The Atlanteans' downfall is due to their abuse of technology. We must learn this ancient lesson if we want to advance spiritually. I think they literally pierced. I think they pierced the dome, right? Like I think they pierced the dome, and that was, that's why we have so much water taken onto Earth. Brenda, you know my views on all of this, but. Yeah, so I just wanted to give you an idea. So when I say that the paint cans are ancient Egyptian technology, it's that wave propagation system, right? So it's the crystals in those tubes, natural organic material, right? Copper. That is the shotgun barrel of photons or of electrons or ions, right? Negative ions in exchange. Right? And these fuckers that are spraying this stuff, they have no idea. They have no idea what's going on up there. Maybe they do, right? I could be under crosshairs right now. Boom, there goes my live video, right? The creature from that was what it is. The creature from Jekyll Island. So that was the representative was Bill Gates. His great grandfather was Frederick T. Gates. That was the representative at that meeting. Another one like the financiers for the Bolshevik Revolution, right? Where Christianity, but like or Orthodox Christianity, Russian Christianity, the Orthodox Church, they were attacked by these Khazarians, right? The Bolsheviks, so Trotsky and Lenin both were funded by this guy, Jacob Schiff. He was an American banker, is what he claimed, right? He's also the same guy that had everything to do with westernizing Japan at that time. And like, if you watch The Last Samurai, it's a great movie, right? And it's kind of ironic that a Jewish guy is the lead character, being Tom Cruise, right? But the westernization of Japan, we want your big guns, we want your trains, we want your automobiles. So they put the stranglehold on Japan. They said, all right, well, you guys don't have your own oil production. Now you're going to have to pay us 5 times what it's worth anywhere else because, a convenience fee. We're going to triple the cost of gas for you. Well, they're offended. Like, we trusted you, blah, blah, blah. And guess what? Pearl Harbor happens right after, right? So Jacob Schiff, now, he is the great uncle to Adam Schiff, the House chair a couple of years ago, right? The House chair on intelligence, right? So this network of people has always been there. Who's pushing all the vaccine stuff? Who wants to monetize every movement of every digitally recognized and recorded thing that exists? Bill Gates. Why does he want to inject people with stuff? He has no idea, because there's graphene in that stuff. Right. So all of these different things are all tied together, but they all stem straight down into the heart of Israel, the Talpiot program stuff and whatever else, so I think that people should be a lot more concerned. I think people should be a lot more active. I think people should do a lot more reading and getting rid of the old world that you were shoved into as what you call your own personal life. It isn't life. It's a literal slavery to wake up and go to a job every day. It's been built this way by them, and we don't even know that it's here. It's like that Japanese Art of War, where they say in the book, the best way to take over a country is without any resistance at all. That's what we're having happening right now, and it's being done technologically. We have been already usurped by the people that fund all of these programs, all of these technologies, through the colleges, through all these different means of doing things. Oh, your dad did that movie too? That's wild. Schiff's wife is a man. I don't doubt it, man. He's a creepy looking little bastard. Standard Oil supplied Germany and Japan with the additive planes needed to fly at extreme high altitudes up to the end of World War II. Israel thought you were going to go there. I don't want to go into Israel because I know where they're. I mean, that is the heart of today's situation, right? But we're slaves to this fake money, right? You're a slave. You go out and you trade your labor in this vampire system. You trade your labor to play with their money, right? I have a little more of the shekels than you do. I'm going to get a new boat and a new yacht and a big fat house, and I'm just going to keep on doing what they ask me when I get to court and when I arrest that guy over there and when I build that house, right? I'm chasing after dollars that aren't mine. That's their measurement system for the labor that I put out for my life. That's all that is. It's labor. It's to take your life essence and trade a dollar for it. The things that make you tick, the things that make you live, the things you live for, right? Here's a dollar for it, right? That's, look at prostitution. Like, think about that, what that does to people. That it's that kind of stuff, right? Repeal 1913. Creature from Jekyll Island. How many of us are holding up our hands and counting? I don't know what you mean by that, Astra.
10 years without a bank account, voter registration, paying fees, answering questions to court officials. Good stuff, Micah. I'd like to talk about that a lot more, but I don't want to, this is getting pretty public lately. I'd like to tell you my situation, which I don't give a shit, honestly. The land behind the ice wall is said to be owned by, I think that's by the Germans or something, Rothschild family. But my question is, how much did they pay God to be able to own that land? Yeah, again, name of the book to read. I don't know what you're asking me there, Bob Kalba. This book here is The Spiritual Technology of Ancient Egypt. You'll just screenshot it and you can reverse the image if you want. It's based on Christopher Dunn. He's a smart, sharp guy, and he's always talking about ancient Egypt. He's even still talking about the things they found underneath the pyramids and all that. Super smart guy. It's just, these guys up on that level, right? Like they, to have any credentials whatsoever, they they kind of have to agree with academia to get where they want to be, right? And so they don't recognize, they're insulated, right? It's a compartmentalization from one topic into the next topic, right? The best chemist in the world doesn't know all the ins and outs of the best archaeologist in the world, and they rarely cross paths, right? So it's built that way on purpose. It's all just split up into these little splinters of knowledge. You want to be a great aeronautics teacher, then you'll never know anything about avionic or water. So it's the stamp thing is starting over on me again. Name of the book I had asked above, not sure if you already answered it. It was with regards to the piezoelectrical effect and how the crystals need to be under pressure to create the effect. Yet in your design, they are just inserted into the pipe. How is the piezoelectrical effect created with no pressure? So in the Cloudbuster that I used in that first video, the one that went really popular, I just put extra crystals on top of crystals that were already in the base under stress. So it wasn't worth. Then that it seems to boost things a little bit, right? But somehow it slows down occasionally. Like I pay attention to the way that it all acts, and that's why I really want people to start playing around with these things themselves, so they can see, I can add a crystal to it, right? And that'll pep it up for a little bit. Sometimes it works. I'll spray it, right, and increase the ground. Today I added magnets to one, and it just blew the sky right apart. It was literally like a 7 or 8 minute thing, and I was just like, wow, that's freaking awesome. The kid that works for me, we were both watching. I turned, I looked at him, I said, what do you think? He said, holy shit. I said the same thing, because we were literally under clouds all day. And now I'm looking over there and I see we've been under clouds all day because the wave generators that I have on the radio propagation devices in my yard have been unplugged all day. So that's why I've had clouds all day, and I couldn't figure out why it was happening. And now I know. So it's one of these. This is what I'm talking about. Having these. You should probably try and pick one of those up. Just look up wave generator on Amazon. So yeah, that was just crystal added on to other crystals. The other ones that were in there were already under pressure, but they're in those ones I was using rubber hose pieces. I was just stuffing a piece of quartz that would fit inside of this hose. So I'd locate a piece of quartz that would fit and make sure that it was extremely tight getting in there. And then this is exactly the same size as a copper pipe, right? So I can slide the whole thing right in there and I didn't have to worry about it. So that was just, that was an earlier idea. Now I came up with this cork idea. That's probably about the best one that I'll get to now for applying pressure. So what's the name of that book again, please? It is The Spiritual Technology of Ancient Egypt, I think is the one that you're asking me. And it's by Edward F. Malkowski, which is another really smart guy. Oh, that's his foreword. Foreword is by Christopher Dunn. What's the name of that book? I had above. Not sure if you already answered it. All right, got there. Name of the book to read. Pretty sure I'm poisoned with graphene after 6 months supply of mushroom coffee as well. finally gave up a month ago. Yeah, I mean, it left a real bad, Eileen, it left a real bad feeling in my stomach every time I drank. At first, it was like, wow, I got this pep of energy, and it's an all-day energy, and then I just kept drinking it because I was getting kind of used to it, and I enjoyed it. And the more I drank it, I didn't feel good in my guts, Antarctica fluoride in 8 countries, water systems dimming people into compliancy. Jennifer, I don't know if anybody knows this, but aluminum is banned in the use for food packaging in Japan. It's like the only country that banned aluminum in all things, right? We've been getting vaccines. I just said this to somebody before. I was getting my water out of places. We've been getting injected with vaccines. Every single vaccine ever made was with aluminum in it. And that aluminum is what ionizes. It's been a slow death by natural causes forever, since aluminum has been a thing. Look at 1885 and previous to that. It's always been those who poison the water, as the ancient Egyptians called them, the Hyksos. I have not poisoned the water. That is one of the principles of Ma'at, right? The people that poison the water. Who did it this time? Well, the Zionists. Well, who are the Zionists? The Hyksos, right? The Bolsheviks, right? It's that one power structure that weaves in through all these different things. The land beyond the ice wall is said to be owned by the Rothschild family. Okay. It just escaped on me. I'm trying to read them all, man, but ice wall is said to be owned by the Rothschild family. But my question is, how much did they pay God to be? Yeah. Many of us are holding up our hands and counting. I don't know what you mean. 10 years without a bank account, voter registration, paying fees, answering questions, and court officials. That's beautiful. Fuck these bastards. I mean, what of your money do they take and do what you want to be, what you want to see them do with it? What have you seen them do that you wanted to see them do with your money ever? New roads and bridges. Guess what? Laced with smart city infrastructure graphene, right? That's it. Creature from Jekyll Island. Creature from Jekyll Island again. Waters above and waters below. We are in an enclosed system. Every time the firmament gets cracked, it repairs itself. My dad did that movie. Schiff's wife is a man. I'm sure of it. I would, so is Obama's. So now I'm getting back to the places where I were before. Slavery. Chills about what, Astria? I don't know. It's so you don't find yourself, for sure. And once I found myself, like after I got divorced and everything, and I learned who I really was. I really enjoyed learning. I enjoyed researching. I enjoyed, everything that goes with a divorce. Like, all right, let's read a book on psychology. Why are women so fucked up? Right? It can't be me. I'm joking, right? But it's that was one of the pinnacles in my life, like where I became a totally different person. I became the person that I always wanted to be, really, right? Because I didn't have the kids every day, and so finding yourself is like the most important part of all of this. All of the Democrats' wives are trans men. I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of the Republican ones are too, man. Sean Hampton, I have the same thing ever since they put up them down towers. I'm surrounded by them. Noise has been worse. I'm telling you, there's got to come a day where everybody is just burning those son of a bitches. Those towers are EMF wave propagation systems, just like a Rife machine. That's what they are. It's specifically to generate and control all of the frequencies around you, under a blanket, under an umbrella. It is a Rife machine used for control, not for health, right? Men are prostitutes. They're pimped out each day while they leave their home kingdom. Their women and children abandoned. Presidents' wives are men. Alex Garul, I tried to join your group, but was cast of the guard. I did fill in the blanks. Not sure if I passed. Love your stuff, man. Been on a hunch all along, but thank you for breaking it down. For sure. Alex, I appreciate it. I can't hit the see more. So if you guys keep them short, it'd be better because I can't really read big, long things on here. Instagram, check out Still Shining Bitches. How many wave generators do I use? I put them at 3 different frequencies, Tina. The frequencies are, I seem to be having a lot of luck with 21, right? As in balance, like, so all of the resonant fields, all of the numbers in the Fibonacci sequence, they all break down to the numbers 3, 6, and 9, like 144, right? 1 plus 4 plus 4 equals 8 or 9, right? So that is, I did a whole series of videos on this. Like, well, I was just blown away by the number 9, like completely. And does anybody remember me doing the videos on the number 9? I was just like, wow, right? Like, if you start looking up these crazy things about what interesting facts are there about the number 9, it will blow you away, man. But it's the Tesla thing is where I started getting into it, where it was 369 and everything. So it was funny that every harmonic that falls into that digital square root of the numbers 3, 6, or 9 are beneficial to the body and harmony in the body. And that's pretty wild, right? I have graphene detox device. Some guy was talking to me about that today when I was getting my water, and I don't know what it would be. I think that it just passes through the body if it's not charged and if it's not bonded somehow. I mean, I can't understand why they had to give people 3,657 fucking boosters, right? Each. I don't understand that. So I think that that's what it is. I think it, so under electrical stress, I think another thing that I had a theory at one time, this is literally a theory, but you're under electrical charge, that's ionization. Ionization is driving particle, or so driving electrons out of mass by introducing a strong electromagnetic field to that mass, drives the electrons out. Well, people are starting to have these bone density issues. A lot of people at one time, I made a video about I crunched both of my molars in the back, and they snapped in half after years of, they got repaired once, but they crunched right off, both in the same week, and my teeth just felt like glass, and I couldn't figure out what it was. I brought that up as a topic, and everybody started saying, me too, my teeth are doing that too, right? And so I went and to fix that, I started taking the kosher recommended, the kosher toothpaste, which, when that populated, when I did a search on it, was calcium phosphate. So to remineralize your bones and your teeth, take a healthy amount of calcium phosphate, because like all these different things, these poisons. So wonder about Colgan water. Any water that is filtered is not what it's supposed to be for you. All the minerals are taken out of it. It's dead. It's just a fact. And then they put it in this plastic sleeve. It can't even take on the sun's charge, which would be another form of energized water that your body would benefit from. That's gone because it's encased in a poly sleeve. That's an insulator. It won't allow the ions into the water to charge it. So you're drinking dead water, and you're drinking Deer Park or Poland Springs or whatever, right? They took all the nutrients, they took all the minerals, gave you something that you're going to piss out immediately after you drink it. It just goes in your bloodstream right back out of your body. You drink natural water and you start to take potassium bicarbonate, you'll start getting rid of allergy symptoms. You'll start getting rid of calcification on your limbs, right? Arthritic stuff. You'll start to hydrate your cells inside your body. But potassium bicarbonate is a really, really big one. But the most important thing to drink, the healthiest thing for you can possibly drink, is earth water right straight from the earth, from spring, which I don't recommend because spring would be good, but like mountain spring water, like that's exposed to all the shit falling out of the sky. So just for me, I don't like the idea of it. I go to a well and I drink all my water out of the well because it's negatively charged. The negative charge is what is harmonious to the body, like the salamanders, like the book, the Body Electric by Dr. Robert O. Becker, right? Or just do yourself a favor tonight and watch that documentary on YouTube. You'll find it. It's called The Body Electric. Watch that and you'll say, holy hell, like there's some really cool stuff in here. But it tells you negative charge in the body is that brings back a harmony. Like when you ground, you walk around and you ground your body out. Yeah, Culligan water, all the filters, you know, they all the filters in the water now are using graphene. They claim it's we use carbon filters. Well, it's like, you know, one step away from graphene and carbon are like, it is the same thing basically, right? On a nano scale, it's like this, it's the same thing. So as your body is ionizing, I think that it's being replaced with graphene. So you lose electrons from your body, right? And you lose bone density and mass from your body. What replenishes those electrons, or that, you know, that mass that was there, right? I think graphene is replacing that inside of people's bodies. I think that, so how to get rid of that, I don't know. But that, and then you start looking at things like Yale University has the carbon capture program. Your body's made of carbon, right? So they want to capture it. I'm pretty much done here. Shane, my dad says hi. Lily Makowski. Tell him I said hello, Makowski. Lilith, what's up? I know you hate that name. Tell your dad I said hi. Grateful to have a well. Me too. B. Polskus powder is incredible. Zeolite by Masterpiece has done immense studies proving to remove the nanoparticles and graphene oxides and heavy metals and forever plastics. What's the name of your toothpaste? I'd like to order. Just order calcium phosphate. Calcium phosphate is all I use. I use that in Arm & Hammer. Not Arm & Hammer, but I say Arm & Hammer because I know, don't jump down my throat. The baking soda and hydrogen peroxide. So diatomaceous earth for collagen. That's another one I was taking there for a little while. I think that the Cloudbuster can also repel 5G frequency from 5G tower. 5G street lights cause those lights drastically popping up in every street. The purple lights are UV, right? Ultraviolet. And I couldn't think of it the one night, but they're UV, and that's what charges graphene. That's bonded to your car and to your house and to your roads and whatever else. So that's what the purple lights, the 5G lights are. And then all of the smart equipment, smart products, smart devices, TVs, the 5G router in your house, the OnStar system in your vehicle, all of that stuff is what is reporting technology. You know, so what AI is learning through your phone. Like my phone updates so much. I try to delay it or stop it, and it just won't do it because it's Verizon. That's just another extension of the government. But yeah, I just wanted to cover all this stuff tonight because it's really, really interesting stuff. You know, you don't have to believe in anything, right? You can come to know that everything we were all taught was not what they say it is, number one, right? All of it is to garner your support of this bullshit system of things, right? And how do they do that is remove you from knowing, from observing, from experiencing, right? And that's the digital world, right? You're sitting in a house, you're like this all day long. Your kids are like this all day long. Get the hell outside and go play, you know. That's it's crazy watching it all. You know, taking the physical world away and making everything digital. It's literally like we're at the end stage of it all. But I'm done for tonight. I wanted people to check these things out. Sonoluminescence, Star in a Jar. All of those things will blow your mind. By the time you get to the end of that journey, you'll say, oh my God, the stars are trapped energy in the exclusion zone, right? That whole band, right? If there's a band of a firmament, right? It's that same material. If there's an ocean above, it means that band of material behaves like every other thing, right? Like an oxygen bubble or an air bubble rises through the ocean. What is the defining characteristic around that air bubble? It's a lattice structure electron fabric. That electron fabric is the same fabric that defines the raindrop from the air that it's falling through, right? That is that electron fabric. Otherwise, it would just be mist everywhere, water vapor in the air, nothing, no raindrop would form. So there's an energy in that. That is the positive energy comes down with the rain. It sits on top of the water. Animals drink the top of the water in a stream, right? The trout swim upstream because that's where the most of that energy is at. It always rises. So It's just all of it is just it's incredible stuff when you start to look at the old scientists versus the new scientists. It's like the new scientists have been trained to drag you along on their bullshit journey for believing everything rather than knowing everything, and that's where I landed. Like, I don't believe a goddamn thing about anything anymore. I'll go and I'll learn it before I allow anybody to give me their version of what reality is. So, but yeah, it was nice catching all of you. And then George, I'll try a couple more here. Thank you for sharing your knowledge. Thanks, Sabrina. Bye-bye, Kathleen. I use a teaspoon of Bob's Red Mill baking soda in my coffee every morning. Ugh. Sounds not good. Zeolite helps the nano. That's what they say, but they're putting the nano in the zeolite. You got to look that one up, Kathleen. What light can you shed about parasites and lack of protocol in the United States? Parasites would not exist if it weren't for frequencies first, right? So, like, 5G came out and they said, 3G came out. Colony collapse disorder jumps up. The bees are all dying, blah, blah, blah. It's not the 3G, don't worry. It's a microparasite is what they ironed it out to over in Australia. They start burning everybody's farms, or the bees, the beehives on people's farms. It's a microparasite. Well, where did the microparasite come from? That microparasite came from the same place as where the boerworm came from. In the United States now, we have, it's the ash and hickory trees have some boerworm illness, right? And where they get up underneath the bark and they eat all that membrane between the trunk of the tree and the bark. And it's the same thing like diabetes, right? You get diabetes because there's a disharmony in the body. There's an electromagnetic harmony that your body is supposed to have, and since microwave ovens were out, right, diabetes, the pancreas started to be the pancreatic cells started to be mutated, where it could no longer produce the insulin and all this, and so when you got glucose into the body or sugar or whatever, right, you couldn't break it down because you didn't generate your own insulin, right? Because of that mutation in the pancreas. Well, lo and behold, there's somebody standing in the background like, hey, I have this synthetic insulin over here. Guess what? That guy's rich now, right? I wonder who he was attached to, right? Problem, reaction, solution, right? We have the solution before we have the problem, right? So we have the solution, but we're going to have to go make a problem now, aren't we? So anyway, about the parasites, like cows, right? They'll go in a patch of grass and they'll eat a big chunk of grass, and then they'll move away from it, right? Enough grass was eaten for now. Let me go over there and start eating instead. Grass puts off a pheromone that is distasteful to whatever its predator is. It communicates with itself. You got to look up the documentary, The Intelligent Trees. That's really cool because it talks about the underground network of mycelium and all this stuff, how the plants communicate, trees communicate. But, so that pungent odor, the cows don't like it. They'll move into another area. And that's what the tree is supposed to do. It's supposed to put off a pheromone that makes itself distasteful to that parasite, that boerworm. Well, what's creating the mutation in the cells of that tree that the tree can no longer generate that pheromone that is not present when that boerworm attacks the tree? The same thing for the parasites in the body. It's all frequency before it's anything. A lot of people want to argue because they found it and they think that it's awesome, right? But once you get into the frequency thing and you really, really understand it, like I do now at this point, right? You don't have to take my word for anything. I recommend you go read the book, The Invisible Rainbow. You'll learn a lot of this stuff. These are the things I'm putting together myself after reading the book, but they just make too much sense, So the parasites are there because of an electromagnetic disharmony in the body, and that is these different outside frequencies like radio and whatever, right? All these frequencies, like you look at the things that did not exist before cell phones. Just look at those things that did not exist before, like ADHD and dementia and Alzheimer's and cancers like this and whatever else. None of that shit was here before cell phone technology came out. Electricity, there was always, they had symptoms of diabetes, right? Like Alexander Graham Bell and like a lot of these scientists that played around with electricity a lot, right? They all showed these different symptoms of different kinds of things that were electrically, caused by caused by electricity and the radiation from electricity in all of its forms. That's LED lights, which I can't stand looking at this damn thing. That's the radio towers. That's the cell phone towers. That's the Wi-Fi around you, the Bluetooth signal, all of that stuff, right? All of that is disharmonious to the body. So look at the frequencies before you look at the parasites. The parasite cleanse wouldn't be a bad idea, right? But, a lot of people are doing that holistically. It's an awesome idea. But the frequency thing is where I'll die on that mountain, because it is absolute. It is I bought a Rife machine. I don't know how many people know that. I have a big, giant $5,000 freaking Rife machine. And the things that I've healed on myself are incredible. And I don't know why they ever stopped. Well, I know. I mean, the Rockefeller thing, that's why they stopped. You can't buy the machine unless you buy it in 3 separate parts from 3 different manufacturers, all who sell it to you as one machine. So that's because of the FDA is, and it's called a healing machine. We don't want that, right? We don't want people getting healed. We need pharmaceuticals, So I've never been that hippie-ish kind of guy, let's go dance around a fire and wear crystals. And here I am. I got crystals coming out of my ass. It's like, because it's real stuff, and these people were very, very smart to spiritually engage life the way that they have. I have all the respect in the world now for the hippie type people, right? That I always said, they're a bunch of fucking hippies. They're out smoking weed in the woods and whatever, not that I have anything against that. It's just like, as you're growing up and you're trying to be square and you're trying to raise your kids proper and all this stuff, you're like, I don't have any time for the hippie life, I got shit to do, you guys ought to be ashamed of yourself. Go raise your kids the right way, all that stuff, all the ego built up into you, I lost all of it now that I started learning all the truths behind all these things, so. But it says there's 16 more. I said I wanted to go home. I want to go. Not Alan Gray. I need to find this. They put electric smart meter on my house. Ground something between the smart meter and your house. Get a piece of fiber or mesh, copper mesh, and a ground wire, and run that ground wire off into the ground. At least it won't penetrate the wall then. Because once it's grounded, it's diffused, it's discharged, right? That wavelength, that electrical propagation is then caught by the copper and diffused. It's sent right down into the ground. So that's the only way that you can stop that from raining radiation into your house. So I've always been taught that hippie, no weed though. Did not know kids were involved. I don't know what you're talking about. Paint can may help. I mean, I don't know. It is a grounding mechanism, right? It specifically needs to be grounded. So reminds me, do not laugh. All right, man, I gotta go. I'll read these comments later. I gotta go. It's getting late now, and I've got a lot of work to do tomorrow. 8:18. See you guys. Thanks for watching. I enjoyed the conversations. Hopefully you can learn some of this stuff, man. It is so interesting. But you'll start to question, like, do I live on this globe, right? I mean, if you have any other questions about it, like, those are just a couple of the things, The other one is plumb, right? The idea of plumb, straight up and down. So if I build a 1 mile square building, it's plumb here, 1 mile up. And I come over level 1 mile, and I go up 1 mile there, right? What is my dimension at the top of these 2 walls, right? Should be 1 mile. Well, under the globe idea, it should look like that, right? And that's not how buildings are shaped. So physically, there's a lie there somewhere, right? All the buildings in New York City aren't going like this when you're driving by, right? And they're miles away from each other. You don't see it. They're all symmetrical. They're all parallel to each other. And what is plumb? So my point with that is the center of gravity did not move from here to a mile away or another mile away. And especially if the Earth is supposed to be this, 8-inch deviation per mile, right? Meaning if as I travel 1 mile, I should step down 8 inches, and I go to my next mile and I should be at 16 inches below that level, right? If that's the concept, if that's what they're telling us, that is the truth about the round Earth, right? Then everything should be shaped like this, and it's not. So that's just one physical thing. I could go through those all day. The Zetetic Astronomy book. Look that up by Ro Botham. The guy's name was something, I can't remember his first name, but his last name is Ro Botham, like rowboat, ROWBOWTHAM, Ro Botham. And the Zetetic Astronomy is the name of the book. And he had all these different kinds of proofs on the whole thing. The plumb thing is that's just my own idea. Like, as a carpenter, I've been doing it my whole life. Like, why are all the buildings not going like this then? You know, like taking a book like this, right? It's all flat right there. It should all be like this, right? There should be an arch to all of that thing. It should be like hair on my head sticking out, you know? And it's not. So, I mean, there's a lot of good reason to question all of these things. But again, the people that control your perception of reality have always controlled your grandparents, your great-grandparents, your parents, right? They've never known any different. They've had their parents beating the shit out of them, beating it into their heads. You get to school and get some good grades, right? Okay, my dad's going to kill me if I don't get that A. All right, the earth is round, you know? So it's just, you don't ever get a chance to question the reality that you live in if you want to be looked at as normal. And I just don't give a fuck about that anymore. So, try not to get into numbers right. Let's see. Yes, it's simple. The geometrics are the same. There is no level on a ball, no matter how big the ball is. That's it. Okay, man. Peace, guys. I'm out of here.